The bullet grazed his shoulder just as Zachary Bennett dismounted his horse outside what looked like an abandoned cabin deep in the Utah Territory wilderness, and he knew immediately that whoever was inside meant business. "Do not come any closer," a woman's voice called from within, trembling but determined. "I will shoot again if I have to." Zachary raised his hand slowly, wincing at the burn across his shoulder. Blood seeped through his shirt, but the wound was superficial. He had seen enough injuries during his years riding through these territories to know the difference between a scratch and something serious. "Easy now," he called back, keeping his voice steady. "I am just looking for shelter for the night. I mean you no harm." There was a long silence from inside the cabin. Zachary could hear the floorboards creaking as whoever was inside moved around, likely trying to get a better view of him through the gaps in the weathered wood. "How do I know that?" the woman finally asked. "Well, for one thing, if I meant trouble, I would not be standing here with my hands up after you just shot me," Zachary said, trying to keep any anger out of his voice. It was 1883, and a woman alone out here had every reason to be cautious. The Utah Territory was still wild country, and danger lurked around every corner for the unwary. Another long pause. Then the door cracked open just a sliver, and Zachary caught sight of a young woman with dark hair and eyes the color of honey holding a rifle that looked almost too big for her small frame. Her face was smudged with dirt, and her dress was torn in several places. "You are bleeding," she said, her voice softer now but still wary. "That tends to happen when someone shoots you," Zachary replied, unable to keep a slight edge from his tone this time. The woman bit her lip, and for a moment Zachary thought she might close the door again. Instead, she opened it wider and lowered the rifle slightly. "I am sorry," she said. "I thought you were someone else." "Who?" Zachary asked, lowering his hand slowly. The woman glanced behind him, scanning the darkening horizon as if expecting to see riders approaching. When she looked back at him, there was real fear in those honey-colored eyes. "The men who are looking for me," she said quietly. "I needed a place to hide." Something in her voice made Zachary believe her instantly. He had heard that particular note of terror before, usually in the voices of people running from something or someone truly dangerous. He took a careful step forward. "Can I at least tie up my horse and take a look at this shoulder?" he asked. The woman hesitated, then nodded. "Hurry. If they are tracking me, they might have seen your tracks." Zachary quickly led his horse around to the back of the cabin where it would be less visible from the main trail. The cabin was indeed abandoned, though it looked like it had been a decent homestead once upon a time. The roof was mostly intact, and the walls were solid enough to provide real shelter. When he came back around to the front, the woman had retreated inside but left the door open. Zachary stepped through carefully, his eyes adjusting to the dim interior. There was an old stone fireplace, a broken table, and some scattered debris that suggested the place had been empty for at least a year or two. The woman stood in the far corner, rifle still in hand though pointed at the floor now. In the fading light coming through the windows, Zachary could see her more clearly. She was young, probably in her early 20s, with a delicate face that would have been beautiful if not for the exhaustion and fear etched across it. Her dress had once been fine, the kind a proper lady might wear to church or a social gathering, but now it was stained and torn. "Do you have anything to bind that wound?" she asked, nodding toward his shoulder. "I have supplies on my horse," Zachary said. "But first, maybe you could tell me your name and what kind of trouble you are running from. If men are coming, I need to know what I might be facing." The woman studied him for a long moment, as if weighing how much to trust this stranger she had just shot. Finally, she set the rifle down against the wall and wrapped her arms around herself. "My name is Olivia Davenport," she said. And the men looking for me work for my uncle. Zachary waited for her to continue, but she seemed reluctant to say more. He could see her hands shaking even though she tried to hide it. "I am Zachary Bennett," he offered. "I was heading toward Taylorsville when I saw this place and thought I would stop for the night. Now, why do not you tell me why your own uncle would have men hunting you down?" Olivia took a shaky breath. "Because I ran away from the marriage he arranged for me, to a man named Clayton Morse." The name meant nothing to Zachary, but the bitterness in Olivia's voice when she said it told him plenty. "I take it you did not want to marry this Morse fellow," he said. "He is twice my age and cruel," Olivia said, her voice breaking slightly. "I saw how he treated his first wife before she died. My uncle does not care. He is being paid a substantial amount for brokering the marriage." Zachary felt a familiar anger rising in his chest. He had seen this kind of thing before, young women treated like property to be bought and sold. It made him sick every time. "How long have you been running?" he asked. 3 days, Olivia said. "I had some money saved and I hired a man to take me north by wagon. But he left me stranded yesterday when he saw riders following us. He said he was not being paid enough to risk his neck." "Where were you trying to go?" "Anywhere," Olivia said simply. "I just needed to get far enough away that my uncle could not drag me back." Zachary nodded slowly. He knew he should probably saddle his horse and ride away from this mess. Getting involved in other people's problems rarely ended well, especially when it involved angry relatives and arranged marriages. But something about the desperate look in Olivia's eyes stopped him from leaving. "Those men," he said. "How many of them?" "I saw at least 4, Olivia said. "They are all experienced trackers and gunmen. My uncle hired the best he could find." "And you think they might be close?" Olivia nodded. "I tried to cover my tracks, but I am not very good at it. I thought this cabin would be safe because it looked like no one had been here in a long time." Zachary walked to one of the windows and peered out at the gathering darkness. He could not see any signs of riders yet, but that did not mean much. If these men were as good as Olivia said, they could be out there right now, watching and waiting for first light to make their move. "We need to do something about that shoulder," Olivia said quietly from behind him. Zachary had almost forgotten about the bullet graze. Now that she mentioned it, he felt the sting of it again. He turned to face her. "Why did you not just tell me who you were when I first rode up?" he asked. "I might have been willing to help without getting shot first." A faint hint of color rose in Olivia's cheeks. "I panicked. I have been so frightened these past few days, and when I heard your horse, I just assumed the worst." Zachary sighed. "Well, what is done is done. Let me get those supplies." He retrieved his saddlebags from his horse, making sure to stay alert for any sounds or movements in the darkness. When he returned inside, Olivia had managed to light a small fire in the fireplace using some of the broken furniture scattered around. The flames cast dancing shadows on the walls. "We should keep that fire low," Zachary said. "Smoke might draw attention." Olivia nodded and adjusted the wood to create less smoke. Zachary sat down on the floor near the fire and began to peel off his shirt. The wound was not as bad as he had feared, just a shallow groove across the top of his shoulder where the bullet had passed through the flesh. "I really am sorry," Olivia said again, kneeling beside him with a clean cloth from his supplies. "I should not have fired without knowing who you were." "You had reason to be scared," Zachary said, trying not to wince as she began to clean the wound. Her touch was gentle, and he found himself studying her face in the firelight. Up close, he could see that her eyes were not just honey-colored but flecked with gold. "How old are you, if you do not mind me asking?" 22, Olivia said. "Old enough to know my own mind about who I want to marry. And your uncle does not see it that way. My uncle only sees the money Clayton Morse is paying him." Olivia said bitterly. She wrapped a clean bandage around Zachary's shoulder, her fingers working with surprising skill. My parents died 2 years ago in a cholera outbreak. My uncle became my guardian, and he has been trying to marry me off ever since. Clayton is just the latest, but he offered the highest price. Zachary felt his jaw tighten. No one should be sold like livestock. Try telling that to my uncle, Olivia said, sitting back. There, that should hold. It is not a deep wound, so it should heal quickly if you keep it clean. Thank you, Zachary said. He pulled a clean shirt from his bags and put it on carefully. Now we need to figure out what to do about those men hunting you. Olivia's face fell. You do not have to get involved in this. I have already caused you enough trouble. Well, I am already shot and sitting in an abandoned cabin with you, so I would say I am fairly involved at this point, Zachary said with a slight smile. Besides, I cannot just leave you here alone to face 4 armed men. Why not? Olivia asked, genuine curiosity in her voice. You do not even know me. Zachary considered the question. Why was he getting involved? He had his own life, his own plans. He had been heading to Taylorsville to meet with a rancher about a job. Getting mixed up in this mess could cost him that opportunity, or worse, cost him his life. But when he looked at Olivia, at the fear and vulnerability in her eyes mixed with a fierce determination not to be forced into something against her will, he knew he could not just ride away. Because it is the right thing to do, he said simply. Olivia stared at him for a long moment, and he saw tears beginning to well up in her eyes. I do not know what to say. You do not have to say anything, Zachary said. Just tell me everything you know about these men and your uncle. If we are going to stay ahead of them, I need all the information I can get. They spent the next hour talking. Olivia told him about her uncle, Marcus Davenport, a wealthy businessman in Salt Lake City who had made his fortune in mining and real estate. After her parents died, he had taken control of her inheritance, claiming he was managing it for her benefit until she married. But Olivia suspected he had been using the money for his own purposes and wanted to marry her off quickly before she could challenge him legally. Clayton Morse was a cattle baron from Wyoming who had recently expanded his operations into Utah territory. He was known for being ruthless in business, and according to rumors, Olivia had heard, equally ruthless with his first wife who had died under mysterious circumstances just a year ago. The men her uncle had hired to track her were led by a man named Samuel Rourke, a former lawman turned bounty hunter who had a reputation for always getting his target. The other 3 were men Rourke had worked with before, all dangerous and experienced. They will not kill you, Olivia said quietly. My uncle wants me brought back alive so the marriage can still happen, but they will not be gentle about it and anyone helping me. She trailed off, looking at Zachary with worry. I can handle myself, Zachary said, though he was not entirely sure that was true. He was a decent shot and had been in his share of scrapes over the years, but going up against 4 professional trackers was not something to take lightly. Maybe you could just give me your horse, Olivia suggested suddenly. You could tell them I forced you at gunpoint or something. You could stay here and avoid the whole thing. Zachary shook his head. That horse is the only thing between us and them catching up right now. And I am not letting you face this alone. But why? Olivia pressed. You do not owe me anything. Zachary met her eyes across the firelight. Maybe not. But I have watched too many people get bullied and pushed around by those with more money or power. If I can do something about it, even just this once, then I am going to do it. Olivia looked like she might argue more, but instead she just nodded slowly. Thank you, she whispered. They took turns keeping watch through the night. Zachary insisted Olivia sleep first since she looked ready to collapse from exhaustion. She curled up near the fire, and within minutes, she was breathing deeply in sleep. Zachary sat by the window, his rifle across his lap, watching the darkness outside. The moon was nearly full, providing enough light to see the landscape around the cabin. He found his thoughts drifting as he watched, thinking about Olivia and the situation she was in. He had to admit, there was something about her that intrigued him beyond just wanting to help someone in need. Despite her fear and exhaustion, there was a strength in her that he admired. It took courage to run away from everything you knew, to strike out on your own with no clear plan beyond escaping a bad situation. When it was Olivia's turn to keep watch a few hours later, Zachary found it hard to sleep. Every sound outside made him tense, expecting to hear horses approaching or men surrounding the cabin. But the night remained quiet, and eventually, exhaustion pulled him under. He woke to find pale morning light filtering through the windows and the smell of coffee. Olivia was crouched by the fire, heating water in a small pot from his supplies. "I found coffee in your bags," she said when she noticed he was awake. "I hope you do not mind." "Not at all," Zachary said, sitting up and wincing as his shoulder protested the movement. It was stiff but felt better than it had the night before. "How does it feel?" Olivia asked, gesturing to the bandage. "I will live," Zachary said. He accepted the cup of coffee she handed him and took a grateful sip. It was strong and bitter, but it chased away the last of the sleep fog from his brain. "I have been thinking," Olivia said, sitting down across from him. "We need to get moving soon. Staying in one place too long is dangerous." "Agreed," Zachary said, "but we need a plan. We cannot just keep running blindly and hope they do not catch up." "What do you suggest?" Zachary had been thinking about this during his watch the night before. "How far are we from Taylorsville?" "Maybe 20 miles, Olivia said. "Why?" "Because I know the marshal there. He is a good man, fair and not easily bought. If we can get to him and explain your situation, he might be able to help. At the very least, he could make sure your uncle's men do not just drag you back by force." Hope flickered across Olivia's face. "Do you really think he would help?" "Tom Hutchins does not take kindly to people being forced into things against their will," Zachary said. "And he especially does not like men who buy and sell women like property. I worked with him a few years back tracking down some cattle rustlers. He is one of the few lawmen I would trust with something like this." 20 miles, Olivia said thoughtfully. "We could make that in a day on horseback. If we are not being followed, yes," Zachary said. "But if Rourke and his men pick up our trail, they will be able to move faster than us since they will know where we are heading." "So what do we do?" Zachary stood and walked to the window, looking out at the morning landscape. The cabin sat in a small valley surrounded by rocky hills covered in scrub brush and scattered pine trees. The main trail was about a half-mile to the east, but there were plenty of other ways to travel if you knew the country. "We avoid the main trails and take the harder route through the hills," he said. "It will be slower, but harder for them to track us, and if we are lucky, they might assume we are heading in a different direction entirely." Olivia nodded, determination replacing the fear in her eyes. "When do we leave?" "As soon as possible," Zachary said. "We will eat something quick, cover our tracks around the cabin as best we can, and then head out." They worked quickly, eating some jerky and hardtack from Zachary's supplies and then carefully erasing signs of their presence in the cabin. Zachary scattered the ashes from the fire and made sure there was nothing obviously left behind that would indicate someone had been there recently. Outside, he spent time obscuring the tracks around the cabin, though he knew a skilled tracker would still be able to tell someone had been there. The best he could hope for was to buy them some time and confusion about which direction they had gone. "Ready?" he asked Olivia when everything was prepared. She nodded, though he could see nervousness in the set of her shoulders. "I have never ridden much," she admitted. "My uncle did not approve of ladies riding horses." "Of course he did not," Zachary muttered. "Well, you are about to learn. My horse can carry both of us, but you are going to have to hold on tight." He helped Olivia up onto his horse, a sturdy bay gelding named Rusty that he had owned for 3 years. Rusty was dependable and sure-footed, exactly the kind of horse they needed for the journey ahead. Zachary swung up behind Olivia, and she tensed as his arms came around her to take the reins. "You all right?" he asked. "Yes," Olivia said, though her voice was a bit breathless. "I just have never been this close to a man before." Zachary felt an unexpected warmth in his chest at her words, but he pushed it aside. Now was not the time for such thoughts. "Just try to relax and move with the horse. Fighting the motion will only tire you out faster." They set off slowly at first, heading northwest into the hills instead of toward the main trail. The morning was cool and clear, the kind of perfect spring day that made Zachary grateful to be alive, despite the circumstances. As they rode, he found himself very aware of Olivia sitting in front of him, the way she gradually relaxed against him as she got more comfortable with the rhythm of the horse. "Tell me about Taylorsville," Olivia said after they had been riding for about an hour. "Is it a nice town?" "Nice enough," Zachary said. "It is not very big, maybe 300 people at most, but it has good people for the most part. Started as a mining settlement back in the 60s, but has grown into a decent little community. There is a church, a school, a few shops, and a saloon that serves the best stew I have ever eaten." "It sounds pleasant," Olivia said wistfully. "Very different from Salt Lake City. You have lived in the city your whole life." "Yes," Olivia said. "My father was a doctor there. He and my mother met when she was visiting from back east. They fell in love and married despite her family's objections. I think that is why I cannot just accept marrying Clayton Morse. I saw what real love looked like with my parents. I know there has to be more than just business arrangements and money." Zachary felt his chest tighten at her words. "Your parents were lucky to find each other." "Did you ever think about marriage?" Olivia asked, then immediately seemed embarrassed by the question. "I am sorry, that is too personal." "It is all right," Zachary said. "And yes, I thought about it once. There was a girl back in Kansas where I grew up. Her name was Sarah, and we talked about getting married someday. But then her father moved the family to California, and I never saw her again." "That was almost 10 years ago now. Do you still think about her?" "Sometimes," Zachary admitted. "But mostly I think about how I was just a kid then, barely 18 and full of big dreams about what life would be like. Things turned out differently than I expected." "How so?" Zachary guided Rusty around a large boulder and through a narrow gap between 2 hills. "I thought I would take over my father's farm, marry Sarah, and raise a family in Kansas. Instead, my father died of a fever when I was 19, and I had to sell the farm to pay his debts. I have been drifting west ever since, taking jobs where I can find them. I have worked as a ranch hand, a trail guide, even spent a year working in a silver mine in Nevada. I keep thinking I will find a place that feels like home again, but I have not yet." "That sounds lonely," Olivia said softly. "It can be," Zachary agreed. "But there is freedom in it too. I answer to no one but myself. I can move on whenever I want to, see new places, meet new people." "Is that what you want, though? Or is it just what you have convinced yourself to want?" The question caught Zachary off guard. He found himself thinking about it as they rode, really considering it for the first time in a while. Was he happy with his rootless life? Or was he just running from the pain of losing the life he had expected to have? Before he could answer, Rusty's ears suddenly pricked forward and the horse tensed beneath them. Zachary immediately pulled them to a stop, his hand going to the rifle secured on the saddle. "What is it?" Olivia whispered. "Not sure," Zachary said quietly, "but Rusty senses something." They sat frozen for a long moment, listening. Then Zachary heard it, the faint sound of horses moving somewhere to the east. He could not tell how many or how far away, but it was definitely riders. "We need to move," he said, guiding Rusty toward a thick cluster of pine trees. They dismounted quickly, and Zachary led the horse deeper into the cover while gesturing for Olivia to stay low. The sound of horses grew closer, and then Zachary spotted them through gaps in the trees. 4 riders moving along a ridge about 300 yards away, heading south. Even at this distance, he could tell they were searching for something, their attention focused on the ground and surrounding landscape. "Is it them?" Olivia breathed beside him, her face pale. Zachary studied the riders carefully. They were too far away for him to make out details, but something about the way they moved, purposeful and organized, suggested these were not just ordinary travelers. "Maybe," he said. "We will wait here until they are well past." They crouched in the trees for what felt like an eternity but was probably only 15 minutes. The riders eventually moved out of sight to the south, but Zachary did not move immediately. He wanted to be sure they were really gone. "You think they are looking for us?" Olivia asked. "Hard to say," Zachary said. "They could be looking for stray cattle, or they could be your uncle's men searching the area, but I do not want to take chances." When he was finally satisfied the riders were truly gone, they mounted up again and continued northwest. But now Zachary was even more cautious. He kept them in cover as much as possible and frequently stopped to listen and watch for any signs of pursuit. Around midday, they paused near a small stream to let Rusty drink and rest. Olivia knelt by the water and splashed some on her face, washing away the dust and sweat from the ride. "How much farther?" she asked. "Maybe 10 more miles," Zachary said, studying the landscape. "But we will have to swing wide to avoid being spotted from the main trail. That will add time. Will we make it before dark? If we keep moving and do not run into any more delays, yes." Olivia nodded and stood, looking back the way they had come. "What if they catch us before we get there?" Zachary walked over to her. "Then I will do everything I can to make sure you get away, but I do not think it will come to that. We have a good lead, and they do not know for sure which way we are heading." "You have already done so much," Olivia said, turning to face him. "If something happens to you because of me, I will never forgive myself." "Nothing is going to happen," Zachary said with more confidence than he felt. "We are going to get to Taylorsville, talk to Marshal Hutchins, and figure out a way to keep you safe from your uncle and Clayton Morse." "And then what?" Olivia asked. "Even if the marshal can stop them from forcing me back, my uncle still controls my inheritance. I have no money, no way to support myself. What kind of life will I have?" It was a fair question, and Zachary did not have a good answer. The legal situation was complicated. As her guardian, her uncle had significant control over her assets until she either married or reached the age of 25. And even if she could challenge him in court, that would take time and money she did not have. "We will figure something out," Zachary said. "One step at a time. First, we get you to safety, then we worry about the rest." Olivia searched his face for a moment, then nodded slowly. "You are a good man, Zachary Bennett. I am grateful I fired that rifle poorly enough to only graze you." Despite the seriousness of their situation, Zachary found himself smiling. "I am glad your aim was off too." They mounted up again and continued their journey. As the afternoon wore on, the landscape gradually changed from rocky hills to more open terrain with scattered farms and homesteads. They were getting closer to settled country, which meant both more safety and more chance of being spotted. Zachary kept them on the smaller trails. avoiding the main roads where possible. They passed a few farms from a distance, and once they saw a wagon heading toward Taylorsville, but Zachary made sure they stayed out of sight. He did not want word spreading that a man and woman were traveling together. It might get back to anyone searching for them. The sun was getting low in the sky when they finally caught sight of Taylorsville in the distance. The town sat in a valley with a small river running through it, smoke rising from chimneys as people prepared their evening meals. To Zachary, who had been watching over his shoulder all day expecting trouble, it looked like the most welcoming sight in the world. "There it is," he said. "We made it." Olivia sagged with relief against him. "Thank God. I was beginning to think we would be running forever." "Not yet," Zachary cautioned. "We still need to get to Marshal Hutchins without being spotted by the wrong people. If any of Rourke's men are already in town asking questions, we need to be careful." They approached Taylorsville slowly as darkness began to fall, entering from the west side where there were fewer buildings and people. Zachary knew the town well enough to navigate toward the marshal's office without going down the main street. The marshal's office was a small building near the center of town, easily identified by the jail cells visible through barred windows. A light was burning inside, which Zachary hoped meant Tom Hutchins was there. He dismounted first and helped Olivia down, noting how tired she looked. They had been riding for hours, and the emotional strain of the past few days was clearly catching up with her. "Stay close," he said, keeping one hand near his pistol as they approached the office door. Zachary knocked, and after a moment, the door opened to reveal a tall man in his 40s with graying hair and sharp blue eyes. Tom Hutchins looked exactly as Zachary remembered him, maybe a bit more weathered but still carrying himself with the calm confidence of a man who knew how to handle trouble. "Well, I will be damned," Tom said, his stern face breaking into a smile. "Zachary Bennett, been a while." "It has, Tom," Zachary said. "Mind if we come in? We have a situation that needs your help." Tom's eyes moved to Olivia, taking in her appearance, then back to Zachary. His expression grew serious. "Come on in." The office was small but well organized, with a desk covered in papers, a gun rack on one wall, and a wood stove in the corner. Tom gestured for them to sit in the two chairs facing his desk while he settled into his own chair. "All right," he said. "Tell me what is going on." Zachary let Olivia tell her story, only adding details when she seemed to struggle with what to say. Tom listened without interrupting, his face growing darker as she explained about her uncle, Clayton Morse, and the men hunting her. When she finished, Tom leaned back in his chair and was quiet for a long moment. "That is quite a situation you have got yourself into, Miss Davenport." "I know," Olivia said, "and I am sorry to bring trouble to your town, but Zachary said you might be able to help." "He did he?" Tom looked at Zachary with a raised eyebrow. "Getting yourself involved in complicated matters again, I see." "Could not just leave her to face those men alone," Zachary said. "No, I suppose you could not," Tom said with what might have been approval in his voice. He turned his attention back to Olivia. "The thing is, Miss Davenport, the law is not entirely on your side here. Your uncle is your legal guardian, and he has the right to make decisions about your welfare, including who you marry. I cannot just arrest his men for trying to bring you back." Olivia's face fell. "So you cannot help me?" "I did not say that," Tom replied. "I said the law is complicated, but there are ways around complications if you are willing to take a bold step." "What do you mean?" Olivia asked. Tom looked between her and Zachary. "In Utah Territory, a woman over the age of 18 can marry without her guardian's consent. Once you are married, your husband becomes responsible for you legally, not your uncle. Your uncle would lose his control over your inheritance, and he could not force you to marry Clayton Morse." Zachary felt his stomach drop as he realized where Tom was going with this. "But I do not have anyone to marry," Olivia said, confusion in her voice. Then understanding dawned on her face, and she looked at Zachary with wide eyes. "Now hold on," Zachary started. "It would solve the immediate problem," Tom continued, his tone pragmatic. "Zachary here is a good man, honest and hardworking. You could do a lot worse, and it does not have to be permanent if you do not want it to be. Once the situation with your uncle is settled, you could have the marriage annulled if both parties agree." "That is crazy," Zachary said, though even as he spoke, he could see the logic in it. "We just met yesterday, and that was only because she shot me." "I have seen people marry for worse reasons," Tom said dryly. "And at least this way Miss Davenport would be protected. Her uncle's men could not just drag her back, and Clayton Morse would have no claim on her." Olivia was staring at Zachary, her expression unreadable. "Would you really do that?" "Marry me to keep me safe?" Zachary found himself at a loss for words. Marriage was not something he had considered in years, and certainly not under circumstances like these. But as he looked at Olivia, at the hope and fear warring in her eyes, he knew what his answer had to be. "If it is what you want," he said slowly, "yes, I would do that." "But you do not even know me," Olivia said, echoing his earlier words. "I know enough," Zachary said. "I know you are brave enough to run from a bad situation. I know you would rather face an uncertain future alone than be forced into marriage with a cruel man. I know you are strong, even when you are scared. That is enough for me." Tears welled up in Olivia's eyes. "I do not know what to say." "Say yes," Tom suggested. "Because if those men are as close as you think they are, we do not have much time. I can perform the ceremony right now, make it legal and binding. By tomorrow morning, half the town will know you are Zachary's wife, and word will spread from there. Your uncle will not be able to do anything about it." Olivia turned back to Zachary. "Are you sure? This is your life too. I do not want you to feel trapped." "I am sure," Zachary said, and he was surprised to find that he meant it. The idea should have terrified him, but instead it felt almost right. "We will figure out the details later. Right now, let us just keep you safe." Olivia took a deep breath and nodded. "All right, yes, let us do it." Tom stood up, all business now. "Good, I will need a witness. Let me get my wife. She will be thrilled to be part of this." He disappeared out a back door, leaving Zachary and Olivia sitting together in stunned silence. After a moment, Olivia reached out and took Zachary's hand. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." Zachary squeezed her hand gently. "We are in this together now." Tom returned a few minutes later with a plump woman in her 50s who introduced herself as Martha Hutchins. She immediately took charge, fussing over Olivia and insisting they at least clean up a bit before the ceremony. "This might be a marriage of convenience," Martha said firmly, "but you will not look back and remember standing there covered in trail dust. Come with me, dear." She whisked Olivia away to another room, leaving Zachary alone with Tom. "You sure about this?" Tom asked quietly. "No," Zachary admitted, "but it is the right thing to do." "She seems like a good woman," Tom said. "And you have been drifting long enough, Zachary. Maybe this is fate giving you a push to settle down." "Maybe," Zachary said, though the idea of settling down still felt foreign to him. Martha returned with Olivia about 15 minutes later, and Zachary felt his breath catch. She had washed her face and hands, and Martha had somehow found her a clean dress that fit reasonably well. Her dark hair was brushed and pinned back, and even though she still looked exhausted, there was a quiet beauty to her that made Zachary's heart beat faster. "Ready?" Tom asked, opening a well-worn Bible. They stood together in the small office, Tom reading the marriage ceremony from his Bible while Martha beamed at them. When Tom asked if Zachary would take Olivia as his wife, he found his voice was steady as he said, "I do." And when Olivia said the same words back to him, her honey-colored eyes meeting his, something shifted in Zachary's chest. This might have started as a practical solution to a dangerous problem, but standing here with this brave woman who had literally shot him yesterday and was now becoming his wife, it felt like something more. "By the power vested in me as a marshal of this territory, I now pronounce you husband and wife," Tom said. "You may kiss your bride." That part Zachary had not prepared for. He looked at Olivia, who seemed equally uncertain. Then, carefully, he leaned in and pressed a gentle kiss to her lips. It was brief and chaste, but Zachary felt warmth spread through him at the contact. When they pulled apart, Martha was wiping her eyes. "That was lovely. Now, let us get this all written down properly." Tom produced marriage papers that he and Martha signed as witnesses. When everything was complete and official, Tom handed Zachary a copy. "Keep this safe," he said. "If those men show up looking for Olivia, I will make sure they understand she is legally married now and under your protection." "What about her uncle?" Zachary asked. "He is not going to just give up." "He can try to contest the marriage in court," Tom said. "But that will take time, and based on what Mrs. Bennett has told us, I do not think he has much legal ground to stand on. She is of age and married of her own free will. The inheritance question is more complicated, but that is a matter for lawyers, not marshals." "Where will you stay tonight?" Martha asked, looking between them. "The hotel is right on the main street. If those men come to town asking questions, they will check there first." "We have a spare room at our house," Tom offered. "It is not much, but you are welcome to it for tonight at least." "We appreciate that," Zachary said, grateful for the offer. He was exhausted, and he could tell Olivia was barely staying on her feet. Martha led them to the Hutchins house, which was a modest home just 2 streets over from the marshal's office. The spare room was small but clean, with a comfortable-looking bed and fresh linens. "I will leave you two to settle in," Martha said with a knowing smile. "Breakfast will be ready at sunrise." When she was gone, Zachary and Olivia stood awkwardly in the small room. The reality of their situation was sinking in now. They were married, and they were expected to share this room, this bed. "I can sleep on the floor," Zachary said quickly. "Do not be ridiculous," Olivia said. "Your shoulder is wounded and you have been riding all day. The bed is big enough for both of us." "Are you sure?" Olivia managed a tired smile. "Zachary, we are married now. I think we can manage to sleep in the same bed without scandal." She had a point. Still, Zachary felt nervous as they both prepared for sleep. He turned his back while Olivia changed into a nightgown Martha had provided, and then he took off his boots and shirt, leaving on his trousers. They climbed into bed from opposite sides, careful to leave space between them. The room was dark now except for a sliver of moonlight coming through the window. Zachary could hear Olivia breathing beside him, could sense her presence even though they were not touching. "Zachary," she said softly. "Yes, thank you for marrying me. I know this was not what you planned for your life. Plans change," Zachary said. "I have learned that much in my years of drifting. Sometimes the unexpected turns out better than what you planned anyway. Do you really think that, or are you just trying to make me feel better?" Zachary thought about the question. "I think I am trying to convince both of us," he admitted. "But I do not regret it if that is what you are worried about. You needed help and I was in a position to give it. That is enough for now. What if my uncle does not give up? What if he makes trouble for you because of this? Then we will deal with it together," Zachary said. "You are not alone anymore, Olivia. For better or worse, we are in this as partners now." He heard her shift in the bed, and then he felt her hand reach out and find his in the darkness. Her fingers were small and warm as they intertwined with his. "Partners," she repeated softly. "I like that." They fell asleep that way, hands clasped between them, two people who had been strangers just 24 hours ago now bound together by marriage and circumstance. Zachary woke to the smell of coffee and bacon. Early morning light was filtering through the window, and the space beside him in the bed was empty. For a moment, he felt a spike of panic, thinking Olivia might have left, but then he heard voices from the other room. He got up and dressed quickly, checking the bandage on his shoulder. The wound was healing cleanly, thanks to Olivia's careful treatment. When he emerged from the bedroom, he found Olivia sitting at the kitchen table with Martha, both women looking up as he entered. "Good morning," Olivia said, and there was color in her cheeks that had not been there the day before. A good night's sleep had clearly helped. "Morning," Zachary replied, accepting the cup of coffee Martha poured for him. "Tom is already at the office," Martha said, setting a plate of bacon and eggs in front of him. "He said to tell you he will keep an eye out for those men looking for Olivia, for your wife." It still felt strange to hear Olivia referred to as his wife, but Zachary was trying to get used to it. They ate breakfast together, and Martha chattered happily about the town and the various people in it. It was clear she was trying to help Olivia feel welcome, and Zachary appreciated the kindness. They were just finishing their meal when there was a knock at the door. Martha went to answer it and returned a moment later with Tom, his expression serious. "4 men rode into town about an hour ago," he said without preamble. "They have been asking questions about a young woman traveling alone. I think it is safe to say they are who we expected." Olivia's face went pale, and Zachary felt his hand instinctively move to his pistol. "Did they say who they were working for?" Zachary asked. "Not directly," Tom said, "but their leader introduced himself as Samuel Rourke. He claims to be looking for Marcus Davenport's niece, says she ran away from home and her family is worried about her." "What did you tell them?" Olivia asked, her voice trembling slightly. "Nothing yet," Tom said, "but they are going to search the town. It is only a matter of time before someone mentions seeing you two arrive last night." "Then we need to tell them the truth," Zachary said, standing up. "Better to face it head-on than have them find out some other way." "Zachary, no," Olivia protested. "What if they try to take me anyway?" "They will not," Tom said firmly. "Not in my town and not when you are legally married." "But he is right. We should handle this now before it becomes a bigger problem." Zachary could see the fear in Olivia's eyes, but he also saw her straighten her shoulders and nod. She was afraid, but she was not going to hide. "All right," she said. "Let us go talk to them." Tom led them back to his office, where 4 men were waiting outside. Zachary recognized the type immediately, professional gunmen who had seen their share of trouble. They all turned as Tom approached with Zachary and Olivia. The man in front was tall and lean with cold gray eyes. He studied Olivia with an intensity that made Zachary's hand move toward his pistol. "Miss Davenport," he said, his voice smooth but with an edge to it. "Your uncle has been very worried about you." "I am sure he has," Olivia said, her voice steadier than Zachary expected. "Worried about losing the money Clayton Morse is paying him." Rourke's eyes narrowed slightly. "Your uncle is your legal guardian. He has the right to make decisions about your welfare." "He did have that right," Tom interrupted. "But not anymore. Miss Davenport got married yesterday evening. She is now Mrs. Bennett, and her husband is her legal guardian, not her uncle." The 4 men exchanged glances, clearly not having expected this development. "That is very convenient," Rourke said, his tone skeptical. "A sudden marriage just as we catch up to her. How do we know this is legitimate and not just some scheme?" "Because I performed the ceremony myself, and have the signed paperwork to prove it," Tom said, pulling out the marriage certificate. "It is all legal and proper. Now, unless you have some other business in Taylorsville, I suggest you head back to Salt Lake City and tell Marcus Davenport that his niece is married and no longer his concern." Rourke stared at the certificate, then at Zachary. "You realize you just made yourself an enemy of a very powerful man." "I will risk it," Zachary said evenly. "And Clayton Morse does not take kindly to being cheated out of what he paid for." "He paid for a person," Olivia said, anger flashing in her eyes. "But I am not property to be bought and sold. I am a human being with the right to choose my own life." Rourke studied her for a long moment, then looked back at his men. Something passed between them, some unspoken communication that Zachary could not read. "Well then," Rourke finally said, "I suppose our business here is done. But you can expect to hear from Mr. Davenport's lawyers about this situation." "We will be happy to deal with lawyers," Tom said. "That is what courts are for. Now, if you gentlemen do not mind, I have a town to run." Rourke tipped his hat mockingly at Olivia. "Mrs. Bennett, I hope you are certain you made the right choice." "I am," Olivia said, and Zachary was proud of the strength in her voice. The four men mounted their horses and rode out of town, heading back south. Zachary watched them go, not entirely convinced they were really giving up. Men like Rourke did not strike him as the type to accept defeat easily. "You think they are really leaving?" Olivia asked Tom. "For now," Tom said. "But keep your guard up. Marcus Davenport might decide to pursue this through legal means, or he might try something else. I will send a telegram to the territorial marshal in Salt Lake City and let him know what is going on. Having it on official record might help protect you." "Thank you, Tom," Zachary said, "for everything." "Just doing my job," Tom said, but there was warmth in his eyes. "Now, you two need to figure out what you are going to do next. You cannot stay with us forever, though you are welcome for a few days while you get settled." That was the question, was it not? What came next? Zachary had been so focused on getting Olivia to safety that he had not thought much beyond that. But now they were married, and they needed to figure out what kind of life they were going to build together. "I was supposed to meet with a rancher named Henderson about a job," Zachary said. "His spread is about 15 miles west of here. I do not know if that offer is still good now that I am married, but it might be worth checking." "William Henderson is a good man," Tom said. "If you explain the situation, I think he will still be interested. He has been looking for a reliable foreman for months." "A foreman," Olivia said, looking at Zachary with interest. "That is a good position." "It would be if he still wants me," Zachary said. "I was supposed to meet with him 3 days ago." "I can send a rider out to let him know what happened," Tom offered. "Knowing Will, he will understand, and having a wife will probably make you more appealing to him, not less. He likes stable men who are settled." "That is assuming Olivia and I stay married," Zachary said carefully. He looked at her. "We talked about this being temporary, remember? An annulment once the situation was settled." Olivia met his eyes, and there was something in her expression he could not quite read. "We did say that, but I have been thinking, maybe we should not rush into an annulment. We barely know each other, and perhaps we should give this a real chance before we decide to end it." Zachary felt his heart beat a little faster. "You want to stay married?" "I want to see where this goes," Olivia said. "If that is all right with you. You saved my life, Zachary. You stood by me when you had no reason to. That means something. Maybe we could try to build something real from this unusual beginning." Martha, who had been listening with interest, clapped her hands together. "Oh, I think that is wonderful. Every marriage needs time to grow. What do you say?" Olivia asked Zachary, "Should we give this a real try?" Zachary looked at this woman who had stumbled into his life just 2 days ago, who had shot him and married him and challenged every plan he had thought he had for his future. And he found himself wanting to say yes more than he had wanted anything in a long time. "Yes," he said. "Let us give this a real try." The smile that broke across Olivia's face made something warm bloom in his chest. Maybe this unexpected turn in his life was exactly what he needed. Over the next few days, Zachary and Olivia settled into a strange new routine. They continued staying with Tom and Martha while waiting to hear back from William Henderson about the foreman position. The Hutchins were generous hosts, treating them like family. Martha took it upon herself to help Olivia get some proper supplies, taking her to the general store and helping her pick out practical dresses and necessities. Zachary tried to pay for everything, but his funds were limited after years of drifting from job to job. Olivia quietly mentioned that she had a small amount of money she had managed to save before running away, and together they pooled their resources. "We are partners, remember," she said when Zachary tried to insist on paying for everything himself. "That means we share our resources." It was a small thing, but it struck Zachary how comfortable he was becoming with the idea of sharing his life with someone. After so many years of independence, he had expected marriage, even a practical one like this, to feel restrictive. Instead, it felt surprisingly natural to have Olivia beside him, to discuss plans and decisions together. They took walks through Taylorsville in the evenings, and Zachary showed her around the town. It was not a large place, but it had character. The main street had a row of businesses including a general store, a blacksmith, a small bank, and a church with a tall white steeple. There were houses scattered around the outskirts, most of them modest but well-maintained. "It is so different from Salt Lake City," Olivia said as they walked one evening. "Quieter, more peaceful." "Does that bother you?" Zachary asked. "I know you are used to city life." "No," Olivia said thoughtfully. "I think I like it. In the city there were always people watching, judging. My uncle kept me on such a tight leash I could barely breathe. Here I feel like I can actually be myself." "Who is that?" Zachary asked. "Yourself, I mean. What do you want to do with your life?" Olivia was quiet for a moment. "I am not entirely sure," she admitted. "I was always expected to be a proper lady, to learn needlework and piano and how to run a household for a husband. But I do not know if that is really who I am. I want to do something useful, something that matters." "Like what?" "My father was a doctor," Olivia said. "I used to help him sometimes when I was younger, before my uncle decided it was not appropriate for a lady. I liked it, helping people feel better. I was good at it too. My father said I had natural talent." "You were good with my shoulder," Zachary said. "Maybe you could help the doctor here in town if there is one." "There is," Olivia said, her eyes lighting up. "Martha mentioned him, Dr. Sullivan. He is getting older and has been looking for someone to assist him. You should talk to him," Zachary encouraged. "See if he would be willing to take you on." "You really think so? I do not have formal training. But you have practical experience and you are willing to learn," Zachary said. "That counts for a lot." Olivia looked up at him with gratitude in her eyes. "Thank you for supporting this. My uncle would have been horrified at the idea of me working, especially as a doctor's assistant." "Good thing your uncle does not have a say in your life anymore," Zachary said with a smile. That night, as they lay in bed with the comfortable space they had maintained between them, Olivia spoke into the darkness. "Zachary, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why did you really agree to marry me? And please be honest. Was it just because it was the right thing to do?" Zachary thought about how to answer. "At first, yes. I saw someone who needed help and I was in a position to give it. But if I am being completely honest, there was something else too." "What?" When I first saw you in that cabin, even scared and pointing a rifle at me, there was something about you that caught my attention. Maybe it was your courage or your determination not to be forced into something you did not want. But I felt drawn to you, even then. And as we rode together and you told me your story, that feeling just got stronger. He paused, gathering his thoughts. I have been alone for a long time, Olivia. I told myself I was happy that way, that I did not need anyone else. But maybe I was just scared of opening up and getting hurt again. When Tom suggested we marry, part of me was terrified, but another part was relieved, like I had been given permission to want something I did not think I could have any more. What is that? Olivia asked softly. A partner. A home. Someone to build a life with. There was a long silence, and Zachary worried he had said too much. Then he felt Olivia shift in the bed, moving closer. Her hand found his in the darkness, just like that first night. I was drawn to you too, she whispered. From the moment you stood outside that cabin with your hands up, trying to calm me down even though I had just shot you. You could have been angry, could have just ridden away. But instead, you showed me kindness. That meant more to me than I can say. We make quite a pair, Zachary said with a soft laugh. You shot me and I married you. Olivia laughed too, a genuine sound of joy that made Zachary smile in the darkness. It is rather unusual, is it not? Not exactly a traditional courtship. No, Zachary agreed. But then again, I have never been very good at traditional. They fell asleep that night a little closer than they had been before, and when Zachary woke in the morning to find Olivia curled against his side, he found he did not mind at all. Word came from William Henderson 2 days later. He was still interested in meeting with Zachary about the foreman position, and invited them both out to his ranch to discuss the details. Tom offered to ride out with them, just to make sure there was no trouble on the road. I do not think Rourke and his men will try anything, Tom said as they prepared to leave. But better safe than sorry. The ride to Henderson's ranch was pleasant in the spring sunshine. The land here was good cattle country, with rolling hills covered in grass and plenty of water from mountain streams. Henderson's spread was impressive, with a large main house, several barns, and extensive corrals. William Henderson himself turned out to be a man in his 50s with weathered skin and kind eyes. He greeted them warmly, not seeming at all bothered by the delay in their meeting. Marshal Hutchins filled me in on your situation, he said to Olivia with a respectful nod. That took courage, running away like you did. And you, he turned to Zachary, showed integrity by helping her. Those are qualities I value in my men. I appreciate you still being willing to meet with me, Zachary said. Let us take a walk and I will show you the operation, Henderson said. Mrs. Bennett, my wife Sarah, is up at the house. She would love to meet you if you would like to go say hello. Olivia looked at Zachary, who nodded encouragingly. She headed toward the house while Henderson led Zachary and Tom on a tour of the ranch. It was an impressive setup. Henderson ran about 500 head of cattle and employed a dozen ranch hands. The previous foreman had left to start his own spread further north, and Henderson had been managing things himself for the past 3 months. I am not getting any younger, Henderson said frankly. I need someone I can trust to handle the day-to-day operations, someone who knows cattle and can manage men. Tom tells me you have experience with both. I have worked on ranches throughout Kansas, Colorado, and Nevada, Zachary said. I know cattle and I have led crews before. I am a hard worker and I am honest. That is what I like to hear, Henderson said. The job comes with a fair wage, room and board for you and your wife, and a percentage of the profits at the end of each year. There is a foreman's cabin about a quarter-mile from the main house that would be yours. He named a figure that was more than Zachary had expected. It was enough to live comfortably on, to start building a real life. "That is very generous," Zachary said. "I believe in paying good people what they are worth," Henderson said. "Now, there is one thing we should discuss. Your wife's situation with her uncle. I need to know that is not going to bring trouble to my ranch." "It should not," Tom said. "The marriage is legal, and Davenport does not have any grounds to contest it. He might try legal action regarding the inheritance, but that would not involve you or your property." Henderson nodded thoughtfully. "Good enough for me. So what do you say, Bennett? Want the job?" Zachary felt excitement building in his chest. This was exactly the kind of opportunity he had been hoping for, a chance to finally settle down and build something lasting. "Yes, sir," he said. "I would be honored to work for you." "Excellent," Henderson said, shaking his hand. "You can start next week. That will give you time to get your affairs in order in town and move into the cabin." When they went back to the main house, they found Olivia and Sarah Henderson sitting on the porch drinking lemonade and talking like old friends. Olivia looked up as they approached, and Zachary could see the hope in her eyes. "Well," she asked. "We are moving to a ranch," Zachary said with a grin. The delight on Olivia's face made every uncertain moment of the past week worth it. They spent the rest of the afternoon at the ranch. Sarah showed Olivia the foreman's cabin, which was small but sturdy with 2 rooms, a fireplace, and a front porch with a view of the mountains. It needed some cleaning and repairs, but it had good bones. "We could make this into a real home," Olivia said, looking around with excitement. "We will need furniture," Zachary said, "and supplies. I do not have much saved up, but we can start with the basics and add more over time." "I can help with that," Sarah said. "We have some extra furniture in storage that you are welcome to. And the hands can help with any repairs the cabin needs before you move in." The Hendersons' generosity was overwhelming. By the time Zachary and Olivia rode back to Taylorsville with Tom, they had the promise of a fully furnished cabin, jobs for both of them, and the beginning of a real future. "This is really happening," Olivia said as they rode. "We are going to have an actual home." "We are," Zachary agreed, and he realized he was smiling. For the first time in years, he felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. The next few days were a flurry of activity. Olivia met with Dr. Sullivan, who was indeed looking for an assistant, and was delighted to find someone with practical experience. He agreed to teach her properly in exchange for her help at his practice, which was conveniently located close to the Henderson ranch. "This is perfect," Olivia said after her meeting with the doctor. "I will be able to help people and learn at the same time." Zachary spent his time preparing for the new job, buying supplies they would need and working with some of the men from town to fix up the foreman's cabin. Word had spread about his marriage to Olivia and how he had helped her escape from a forced marriage, and many people in Taylorsville seemed eager to help the young couple get started. "You have made quite an impression," Tom told him one evening. "People respect what you did for Olivia. They see you as a man of integrity." "I just did what anyone should have done," Zachary said. "But not everyone would have," Tom replied. "That is what makes it special." On their last night in Taylorsville before the move to the ranch, Martha insisted on hosting a small dinner for them. Several townspeople came, bringing housewarming gifts and well wishes for their new life. It was the kind of warm community welcome that Zachary had not experienced since he was a boy in Kansas. "These are good people," Olivia said as they walked back to the Hutchins house that night. "I have never felt so accepted anywhere." "It is different from the city," Zachary agreed. "Better," Olivia said firmly. "In Salt Lake City, everyone was always trying to impress each other, always judging. Here, people just care about whether you are a good person or not." They packed their few belongings that night, getting ready for the move in the morning. As Zachary folded his clothes into his saddlebag, he realized how much his life had changed in just over a week. He had gone from a drifter with no roots to a married man with a job and a home. It should have felt overwhelming, but instead it felt right. "Are you nervous?" Olivia asked as they settled into bed for their last night at the Hutchins house. "A little," Zachary admitted. "This is a big responsibility. If I fail at this job, we will be back to having nothing." "You will not fail," Olivia said with certainty. "You are too good a man to fail." "How do you know that? We have only known each other a week." "Sometimes a week is enough," Olivia said. "I have seen how you treat people, how you keep your word, how hard you work. Those are not things you can fake. I trust you, Zachary." The simple statement of trust hit Zachary hard. "I trust you too," he said quietly. That night, there was no space between them in the bed. Olivia curled naturally against Zachary's side, her head resting on his chest. He wrapped his arm around her, and they fell asleep that way. No longer two separate people sharing a bed, but truly beginning to become partners. The move to the ranch the next day went smoothly. William Henderson had been true to his word. The cabin was clean and furnished with everything they needed. Sarah had even stocked the pantry with basic supplies and left fresh flowers on the table. "It is perfect," Olivia said, looking around their new home with shining eyes, and it was perfect in its own simple way. The cabin was small but cozy, with a main room that served as kitchen and living area and a separate bedroom. The fireplace drew well, and the roof was solid. Outside, there was a small garden plot that Olivia immediately started planning how to plant. Zachary started his new job the next morning. The work was hard but satisfying. The ranch hands were a good group of men, ranging from young cowboys just starting out to experienced hands who had been with Henderson for years. Some of them were skeptical at first about having a new foreman, but Zachary quickly proved himself by working alongside them rather than just giving orders. "You actually know what you are doing," one of the older hands, a man named Pete, said approvingly after Zachary's first week. "Some foremen just boss people around without getting their hands dirty. It is good to see you are not like that." Olivia started working with Dr. Sullivan 3 days a week, riding into town on a gentle mare Sarah Henderson loaned her. She came home from each session full of excitement about what she was learning. "Dr. Sullivan has so much knowledge," she told Zachary one evening as they sat on their porch watching the sunset. "He is teaching me about all kinds of ailments and treatments. Today, we helped a woman with a difficult birth, and both mother and baby survived. It was incredible." Watching her passion for the work, Zachary was glad she had found something that fulfilled her. She was blooming here in ways she clearly had not been able to in Salt Lake City, under her uncle's control. They settled into a comfortable rhythm over the following weeks. Zachary worked long days on the ranch, coming home tired but satisfied. Olivia divided her time between working with Dr. Sullivan and making their cabin into a real home. She planted vegetables in the garden, learned to cook on the fireplace, and slowly added personal touches that transformed the simple cabin into something special. In the evenings, they would sit together on the porch, talking about their days. Sometimes Zachary would tell her stories about the cattle or the hands, and she would share what she had learned from Dr. Sullivan. Other times, they would sit in comfortable silence, simply enjoying each other's company. Their physical relationship progressed slowly but naturally. What had started as a practical arrangement was becoming something deeper. Zachary found himself looking forward to coming home each evening, to seeing Olivia's smile when he walked through the door. And he noticed the way her eyes lit up when she saw him, the way she reached for his hand without thinking, the way she had started calling him "my husband" with pride in her voice. One evening about 2 months after moving to the ranch, Zachary came home to find Olivia standing in front of the cabin holding a letter, tears streaming down her face. He was off his horse in an instant, fear gripping his heart. "What is wrong? What happened?" "It is from a lawyer in Salt Lake City," Olivia said, her voice shaking. "My uncle is contesting our marriage. He claims I was coerced and that you took advantage of me. He is trying to have the marriage annulled and gain back control over me and my inheritance." Zachary felt anger flash through him. "That is ridiculous. You married me of your own free will." "I know that, and you know that, but my uncle is claiming otherwise," Olivia said. "The letter says I have to appear in court in Salt Lake City next month to testify." "Zachary, I do not want to go back there. What if he finds a way to keep me?" "He will not," Zachary said firmly, taking her hands. "We will go together and we will tell the truth. Tom will come with us too and testify that you married me voluntarily. Martha can testify as well." "Your uncle does not have a case." "But he has money and influence," Olivia said. "He knows judges and lawyers. What if they do not care about the truth?" Zachary pulled her into his arms, holding her close. "Then we will deal with whatever comes." "But I promise you, Olivia, I will not let him force you back into the life you ran from. You are my wife, truly now, not just on paper, and I protect what is mine." The words were possessive, but Olivia did not seem to mind. She clung to him, and he felt her trembling. "I am scared," she whispered. "I know," Zachary said, "but you are also strong. You ran away from him once. You can face him again, and this time you will not be alone." They spent that evening making plans. Zachary talked to William Henderson, who generously agreed to give him time off to deal with the legal matter. Tom Hutchins immediately volunteered to accompany them to Salt Lake City and testify on their behalf. "Your uncle does not have a leg to stand on," Tom said confidently when they met with him. "The marriage was legal and voluntary. I performed it myself and made sure everything was done by the book precisely for this reason." "But what about Olivia's inheritance?" Zachary asked. "Even if the marriage stands, her uncle still controls her money." "That is a separate issue," Tom said. "But once she is legally recognized as married, her husband, that is you, becomes the one who can access those funds. You could file to have control of her inheritance transferred to you, and then her uncle would have no say." "I do not want to control her money," Zachary said immediately. "That would make me no better than him." "But I trust you to do right by it," Olivia said. "You could take control of it and then put it in both our names or just mine. Either way, it would be out of my uncle's hands." It was a logical solution, but it still made Zachary uncomfortable. The last thing he wanted was for Olivia to think he had married her for her money. "We will figure it out," he said. "One step at a time." The weeks leading up to the court date were tense. Zachary threw himself into his work, and Olivia continued her training with Dr. Sullivan, but the looming trip to Salt Lake City hung over them both. The night before they were set to leave, they lay in bed together, and Olivia turned to face Zachary in the darkness. "Whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know something," she said. "What is that?" "I do not regret marrying you. Even if we had not been running from my uncle, even if there had been no danger or need for protection, I think I still would have wanted to marry you." Zachary felt his chest tighten with emotion. "Really, really," Olivia said. "These past 2 months have been the happiest of my life. You treat me like an equal, like someone whose thoughts and dreams matter. You support my work with Dr. Sullivan, you listen when I talk, you make me laugh. That is all I ever wanted from a marriage. You are everything I did not know I was looking for," Zachary said honestly. "When I rode up to that cabin, I thought my life was going to continue the same way it had been, drifting from place to place. But you changed everything. You gave me a reason to stay, to build something real." "Kiss me," Olivia whispered. Zachary did, and this kiss was different from the brief, chaste one they had shared at their wedding. This was deeper, full of all the feelings that had been growing between them over the past months. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathless. "I love you," Olivia said. "I think I have been falling in love with you since you stood outside that cabin with your hands up, trying to keep me calm even though I had just shot you." "I love you too," Zachary said, realizing as he said the words that they had been true for a while now. "I think I started falling for you the moment I saw how brave you were, facing down your fears and fighting for your freedom." They made love that night, truly becoming husband and wife in every sense. And when Zachary woke the next morning with Olivia in his arms, he felt ready to face whatever came next because they would face it together. The journey to Salt Lake City took 3 days. Zachary, Olivia, Tom, and Martha all traveled together, staying at small towns along the way. As they got closer to the city, Zachary could feel Olivia's tension increasing. She had not been back since running away, and he knew facing her uncle again would be difficult. Salt Lake City was much larger than Taylorsville, with wide streets, substantial buildings, and crowds of people. They arrived the day before the court hearing and took rooms at a modest hotel. Tom used his authority as a marshal to make sure the local authorities were aware of the situation, just in case Marcus Davenport tried anything underhanded. That evening, as they prepared for the next day's hearing, there was a knock on the door of Zachary and Olivia's room. When Zachary opened it, he found himself face to face with a well-dressed man in his 50s with cold eyes and a hard mouth. "Marcus Davenport," the man said, "I believe you have something that belongs to me." "Olivia belongs to herself," Zachary said coldly, "not to you or anyone else." "May I come in? I would like to speak with my niece." Olivia had come to stand behind Zachary. "I have nothing to say to you, uncle." "Please, Olivia," Marcus said, and his voice took on a pleading tone that sounded false to Zachary's ears. "I am concerned about you. You ran off with this stranger, married him in haste. How do I know he is not taking advantage of you?" "You do not care about me," Olivia said, her voice steady. "You only care about the money you lost when I did not marry Clayton Morse. Well, that money was never yours to begin with." Marcus's expression hardened. "I am your guardian. It is my responsibility to manage your affairs until you are married to a suitable man. This cowboy is not suitable." "He is more suitable than any man you would have chosen for me," Olivia said. "He is kind and honest and treats me with respect." "That is more than I can say for you or Clayton Morse." "You are being foolish and emotional," Marcus said. "Tomorrow the judge will see that this marriage was a sham, entered into under duress. He will annul it and you will come back where you belong." "I will fight you every step of the way," Olivia said. "I am not a child and I am not your property. I chose to marry Zachary and I choose to stay married to him." Marcus's eyes narrowed. "You may regret that choice when you find yourself without access to your inheritance." "I would rather be poor and free than wealthy and trapped," Olivia said. Marcus looked between them, his expression calculating. "We will see what the judge says tomorrow. Good evening." After he left, Olivia sagged against Zachary. "That was harder than I thought it would be." "You did great," Zachary said, holding her. "You stood up to him." "I am terrified of what tomorrow will bring," Olivia admitted. "I know, but whatever happens, we will handle it together." The courtroom the next morning was smaller than Zachary expected, with wooden benches and a raised platform for the judge. Marcus Davenport sat on one side with his lawyer, an expensive-looking man with slicked-back hair. Zachary and Olivia sat on the other side with Tom. The judge was an older man named Harrison, who listened carefully as Marcus's lawyer laid out their case. He claimed that Olivia had been kidnapped by Zachary and forced into marriage while under duress. He painted Zachary as a drifter who saw an opportunity to gain access to Olivia's inheritance. When it was their turn, Tom testified about how Olivia had come to him seeking help, how she had clearly been running from something, and how the marriage had been her choice. Martha testified to the same, describing how Olivia had seemed relieved and grateful rather than frightened. Then Olivia herself took the stand. She described her life under her uncle's control, the forced engagement to Clayton Morse, and her decision to run away. She explained how Zachary had helped her, how the marriage had been Tom's suggestion but her choice, and how happy she had been in the months since. "Miss Davenport, I mean Mrs. Bennett," the judge said when she finished. "Are you testifying under oath that you entered into this marriage voluntarily?" "Yes, Your Honor," Olivia said clearly. "Absolutely voluntarily. Zachary Bennett is a good man who has treated me with nothing but kindness and respect. I love him, and I want to stay married to him." Marcus's lawyer tried to discredit her testimony, suggesting she was too emotional to make rational decisions, but the judge cut him off. "I have heard enough," Judge Harrison said. "Mrs. Bennett is a grown woman of sound mind. She has testified clearly that she entered into this marriage voluntarily, and I see no evidence of coercion or duress. The marriage stands." Marcus stood up angrily. "Your Honor, you cannot just ignore the fact that she ran away from her legal guardian." "Mr. Davenport," the judge said sternly, "your niece is 22 years old. While you were her legal guardian, that does not give you the right to force her into an unwanted marriage. She has now married someone else, which ends your guardianship. As for the matter of her inheritance, that is a separate issue that can be addressed through the appropriate legal channels." "This is an outrage," Marcus said. "No, Mr. Davenport. What is an outrage is trying to sell your niece to the highest bidder like she was a piece of property," Judge Harrison said. "This court finds in favor of the defendant. The marriage between Zachary Bennett and Olivia Davenport Bennett is valid and will remain so." Case dismissed. The relief that washed over Zachary was overwhelming. Beside him, Olivia was crying, but these were tears of joy. They had won. She was free. Marcus stormed out of the courtroom without another word, his lawyer hurrying after him. Zachary pulled Olivia into his arms, not caring who was watching. "It is over," he said. "You are free." "We are free," Olivia corrected, looking up at him with shining eyes. "Free to build the life we want together." They spent one more night in Salt Lake City, this time in celebration rather than fear. The next morning, they took care of some legal business at a lawyer's office. With the marriage upheld, Zachary was now legally able to access Olivia's inheritance. But true to his word, he immediately had the lawyer draw up papers putting the money entirely in Olivia's name, with Zachary having no claim to it. "You do not have to do that," Olivia protested. "Yes, I do," Zachary said. "I did not marry you for your money. I do not want there ever to be any question about that." "Then let it be in both our names," Olivia insisted. "Equal partners, remember," they compromised, having the inheritance put in joint names with both of them having equal access. It was not a massive fortune, but it was substantial enough to make a real difference in their lives. They could expand the ranch operation, invest in better breeding stock, maybe even buy some land of their own someday. But for now, all Zachary wanted was to go home. The journey back to Taylorsville felt different from the tense trip to Salt Lake City. They were lighter, freer, able to enjoy the journey. Olivia rode beside Zachary on her mare, and they talked and laughed as they traveled. "What should we do first with the money?" Olivia asked as they rode. "I think we should talk to William Henderson about expanding the operation," Zachary said. Maybe buy some more cattle, improve the irrigation, make the ranch even more profitable. And I would like to give some to Dr. Sullivan, Olivia said. He has been talking about wanting to build a proper clinic. Right now, he just works out of his house, but a real clinic would let him help more people. That is a good idea, Zachary said. We could fund it together, make sure everyone in the area has access to good medical care. They continued making plans, not grand schemes but practical ideas about how to improve their community and their lives. It felt good to have options, to not be constantly worried about money. When they finally arrived back at the ranch, it felt like coming home in a way nowhere else ever had for Zachary. The little cabin with its garden, the mountains in the distance, the sound of cattle lowing in the evening. This was his place, their place. William and Sarah Henderson were delighted to hear that the court case had gone in their favor. The other ranch hands congratulated them, and there was a general sense of celebration. That night, alone in their cabin, Zachary and Olivia sat on the porch watching the stars come out. I still cannot quite believe it is real, Olivia said. That we are truly free, that my uncle has no power over me anymore. It is real, Zachary said, taking her hand. You are my wife and I am your husband, and we have a whole life ahead of us to do with as we please. What do you want from that life? Olivia asked. Zachary thought about it. I want to make this ranch successful. I want to be a man people respect, not because of money or power, but because of integrity. I want to grow old with you, maybe raise some children if we are blessed that way. I want to build something that lasts, something that matters. That sounds perfect, Olivia said, leaning against him. I want all of that too, and I want to continue learning medicine to help people. I want to be more than just someone's wife or niece or daughter. I want to be myself. You already are, Zachary said, kissing the top of her head. You are the bravest, strongest, most amazing person I know. They sat there for a long time, wrapped in each other's arms, watching the stars and talking about their dreams for the future. And for the first time in either of their lives, those dreams felt truly achievable. The months that followed were busy and fulfilling. Zachary worked with William Henderson to expand the ranch operation, using some of Olivia's inheritance to buy better breeding stock and improve the facilities. The investment paid off, and by the end of the year, the ranch was more profitable than it had ever been. Henderson rewarded Zachary with a larger share of the profits and increased responsibility. Olivia continued her work with Dr. Sullivan, and together with their financial support, they were able to build a proper clinic in Taylorsville. The new facility had space for several patient beds, a surgery room, and proper storage for medicines. Olivia was there almost every day, learning and helping. Dr. Sullivan treated her as a true apprentice, teaching her everything he knew. You have a real gift for this, he told her one day after she had successfully treated a complicated leg fracture. If you were a man, I would suggest you go to medical school. As it is, you are going to be the best medical assistant in the territory. Olivia glowed under the praise. She was happier than Zachary had ever seen her, fulfilled by work that challenged her and let her help people. Their marriage deepened and strengthened with each passing day. What had started as a practical arrangement had become a true love match. They knew each other's quirks and habits, supported each other's dreams, and found joy in the simple moments of daily life together. About 6 months after the court case, Olivia came to Zachary with news that made his heart soar. I am pregnant, she said, her eyes shining with a mixture of joy and nervousness. Dr. Sullivan confirmed it today. We are going to have a baby. Zachary picked her up and spun her around, both of them laughing. We are going to be parents, he said, amazed. We are going to have a family. They spent that evening making plans for the baby, talking about names and how they would need to add on to the cabin to make room for a nursery. Zachary found himself thinking about his own father, wishing he was still alive to meet his grandchild. But then he looked at Olivia and realized they were building their own family now, creating new traditions and memories. The pregnancy progressed smoothly. Olivia continued working with Dr. Sullivan until she was too far along, and even then, she helped with lighter tasks at the clinic. Zachary fussed over her constantly, making sure she was eating enough and not overexerting herself. "I am pregnant, not fragile," Olivia would laugh when he got too protective. But Zachary could tell she appreciated his concern. The baby came on a clear autumn morning, 9 months after their first night together. Zachary paced outside their bedroom while Dr. Sullivan and Sarah Henderson helped with the delivery. When he finally heard the sound of a baby crying, his knees nearly gave out with relief. Dr. Sullivan emerged with a smile. "You have a son, Zachary, a healthy boy," and Olivia did wonderfully. Zachary rushed into the bedroom to find Olivia exhausted but radiant, holding a tiny bundle. "His son. Their son. He is perfect," Olivia said, tears streaming down her face. "Zachary, he is absolutely perfect." Zachary sat carefully on the bed beside her, looking down at the tiny red face of his son. The baby had Olivia's nose and a shock of dark hair. He was beautiful. "What should we name him?" Zachary asked. They had discussed names but had not settled on anything definite. Now, looking at his son, Zachary knew exactly what felt right. "Thomas," he said, "after Tom Hutchins. If it was not for him suggesting we get married, none of this would have happened." "Thomas Bennett," Olivia said, trying it out. "I love it, Tommy for short." Tom and Martha were the first visitors allowed to meet the baby, and Tom was deeply moved to learn he was the namesake. "That is quite an honor," he said gruffly, clearly fighting emotion as he held the baby carefully. "I will do my best to be worthy of it." "You already are," Zachary said. "You helped save both our lives in your own way." Life settled into a new rhythm with baby Tommy. Zachary continued his work on the ranch, though he made sure to spend plenty of time at home helping Olivia with the baby. She recovered quickly from the birth and was soon back to helping at the clinic part-time, bringing Tommy with her. "He is going to grow up around medicine," Olivia said, nursing Tommy while sitting in the clinic. "Maybe he will want to be a doctor someday. Or maybe he will want to work with cattle like his father," Zachary teased. "Or something entirely different. The important thing is that he will have choices, that he will be free to become whoever he wants to be." "Not like me, growing up under my uncle's thumb," Olivia said quietly. "No," Zachary agreed. "Not like that. Our children will know they are loved for who they are, not for what they can do for someone else." 2 years later, they had a second child, a daughter they named Grace. And 2 years after that, another son, Samuel. The cabin had been expanded to accommodate the growing family, and they had saved enough to buy a small piece of land adjacent to the Henderson Ranch, where they planned to eventually build a larger house. Zachary had become an essential part of the Henderson operation, respected by all the hands and trusted completely by William. When Henderson started having health problems, he began gradually turning more of the ranch management over to Zachary. "I am getting old," Henderson told Zachary one evening. "I need to know that when I am gone, this place will be in good hands. You have proven yourself a dozen times over. I am putting it in my will that you and Olivia will have the option to buy the ranch when the time comes." It was an incredible offer, the kind of opportunity Zachary had never imagined having. With their savings and Olivia's inheritance, it would be possible. "I do not know what to say," Zachary said, overwhelmed. "Say you will think about it," Henderson replied. "You have built a good life here, Zachary. You and your family belong here." Olivia had become indispensable to Dr. Sullivan, handling more and more of the medical work as the doctor aged. When Dr. Sullivan finally retired, he recommended that Olivia take over the clinic. There was some resistance in the community at first. A woman running a medical practice was unusual. But Olivia had proven her skill and knowledge so many times over the years that most people accepted it. "Dr. Olivia Bennett," Zachary said with pride the day she officially took over. "Has a nice ring to it." "I am not officially a doctor," Olivia reminded him. "I do not have a medical degree." "You have something better," Zachary said. "Experience, skill, and the trust of everyone in this community. That matters more than any piece of paper." Tommy grew into a bright, curious boy who loved following his father around the ranch. Grace was quiet but observant, always watching and learning. And little Samuel was a bundle of energy who kept them all on their toes. The years passed, marked by the changing of seasons and the growth of their children. There were challenges and hardships. A hard winter when they lost some cattle. A drought year when water was scarce. The normal struggles of raising children and running a ranch. But through it all, Zachary and Olivia faced everything together as true partners. Marcus Davenport never contacted them again after the court case. They heard through mutual acquaintances that he had fallen on hard times financially and eventually left Utah Territory. Clayton Morse remarried, someone else his money could buy, and Zachary occasionally saw news about him in the territorial papers, but paid it little mind. The past felt very far away from their present life. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Zachary took Olivia on a ride back to the abandoned cabin where they had first met. It was still standing, though even more weathered now. "Hard to believe it has been 10 years, Olivia said, standing in front of the cabin. "Remember how terrified I was?" "I remember you shot me," Zachary said with a grin. "And you still married me," Olivia laughed. "That says something about your judgment." "Best decision I ever made," Zachary said, pulling her close. "You gave me everything I did not know I was looking for, a home, a family, a purpose." "You gave me freedom," Olivia said. "And then you gave me so much more. Love, partnership, children. A life I actually want to live." They stood there together, looking at the old cabin, remembering the frightened woman and the drifter who had met there one spring evening. Those people felt like different individuals now, younger and less certain. Life had shaped them, tested them, and made them stronger together. "What do you think our children will be when they grow up?" Olivia asked as they rode back toward the ranch. "Whatever they want to be," Zachary said. "That is the gift we can give them, the freedom to choose their own paths." "Tommy wants to be a rancher like you," Olivia said. "He told me yesterday that he wants to run the biggest ranch in Utah when he grows up." "Grace wants to be a teacher," Zachary said. "She has been practicing with her younger brother, trying to teach him his letters." "And Samuel says he wants to be a marshal like Tom Hutchins," Olivia laughed. "Though last week he wanted to be a train conductor, so that might change." "They are good kids," Zachary said. "We did something right." "We did everything right," Olivia corrected, "because we did it together." By the time they reached their 15th wedding anniversary, Zachary was officially co-owner of the Henderson Ranch. William had passed away peacefully in his sleep 2 years earlier, and true to his word, his will had given Zachary and Olivia the option to buy. They had done so, partnering with Sarah Henderson, who retained a share and a home on the property for the rest of her life. The Bennett Henderson Ranch, as it was now called, was one of the most successful operations in the territory. Zachary employed nearly 30 hands during the busy seasons and had earned a reputation as a fair but firm boss who treated his workers well. Olivia's clinic had expanded as well. She now had 2 young women training under her as assistants, teaching them as Dr. Sullivan had taught her. She had developed a particular expertise in childbirth and had helped bring dozens of babies into the world over the years. Tommy was now 14 and worked alongside his father on the ranch during school breaks. He had his father's practical nature and his mother's intelligence. Grace, 12, was indeed talking about becoming a teacher and spent hours at the schoolhouse helping the current teacher with the younger students. And Samuel, 10, changed his mind about his future career at least once a week, but showed promise in whatever he tried. They had built something lasting, something that mattered. Not just a successful business, but a family, a community, a legacy. One evening, as they sat on their porch watching the sunset, exactly as they had done thousands of times over the years, Olivia turned to Zachary. "Do you ever think about what your life would have been like if you had not ridden up to that cabin 15 years ago?" Zachary considered the question. "Sometimes. I probably would have kept drifting, taking jobs where I could find them, never putting down roots. I might have ended up alone, working some ranch as a hired hand with nothing to show for my years. Do you regret any of it? The complications, the court case, everything?" "Not for a second," Zachary said firmly. "Every challenge we faced was worth it to end up here, with you, with our children, with this life we built. What about you? Do you regret running away?" "Running away was the best decision I ever made," Olivia said. "And shooting you in that cabin was the worst. But everything after that has been better than I ever dreamed possible. You gave me a real life, Zachary, one where I matter for who I am, not what I can do for someone else." "We gave that to each other," Zachary corrected. "I was just drifting through life before you. You gave me a reason to stop drifting and start living." As the sun set over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, Zachary reflected on the strange path that had led him here. A bullet that had barely grazed him, a frightened woman who needed help, a practical marriage that had become the greatest love of his life. He thought about that young drifter who had ridden up to an abandoned cabin, with no idea his life was about to change forever. If he could go back and talk to that younger version of himself, he would tell him not to be afraid, that the best things in life often come from the most unexpected places. "I love you," he said to Olivia, the words as true now as they had been the first time he said them 15 years ago. "I love you too," Olivia replied, taking his hand, "now and always." Their children's laughter floated out from the house where they were playing some game, cattle lowed in the distance. A gentle breeze carried the scent of pine and sage. This was home. This was family. This was everything. And it had all started with a frightened woman in an abandoned cabin saying 4 simple words. "I needed a place to hide." Those words had changed everything. They had led to a partnership, a marriage, a family, and a life neither of them could have imagined. Looking back, Zachary could see how every moment, even the difficult ones, had been necessary to bring them to this point. The abandoned cabin, the desperate escape, the impromptu wedding, the court battle, all of it had forged them into who they were now. They had been tested and had emerged stronger. They had faced fear and found courage. They had started as strangers and become the most important people in each other's lives. As darkness fell and stars began to appear in the vast Utah sky, Zachary and Olivia remained on their porch, comfortable in the silence of 2 people who knew each other completely. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and joys. Their children would continue to grow. The ranch would demand attention. The clinic would need Olivia's skilled hands. Life would go on in all its complicated beauty. But tonight, they simply sat together, grateful for the unexpected path that had brought them here, and looking forward to all the years still to come. Their love story had begun with danger and necessity, but it had grown into something beautiful and lasting. And that, Zachary thought, was the best kind of story. The kind with a happy ending that was really just another beginning. Years continued to pass, and the Bennett family thrived. When Tommy turned 18, he took on more responsibility at the ranch, working as his father's right-hand man. He had grown into a fine young man, strong and capable, with his father's integrity and his mother's compassion. The ranch hands respected him, and Zachary knew that one day Tommy would run the operation himself. Grace followed her dream of becoming a teacher. At 16, she began teaching at the schoolhouse under the guidance of the older teacher, and by 18, she had taken over as the primary teacher for the younger children. She had a natural gift for it, patient and creative in her methods. Samuel, surprising everyone, decided he wanted to study law. At 16, he apprenticed with a lawyer in Salt Lake City, planning to eventually return to the territory and help people navigate legal issues. Watching their youngest son pursue this path, both Zachary and Olivia thought about their own legal battles years ago and were proud that Samuel wanted to help others facing similar challenges. The ranch continued to prosper under Zachary's management. He had earned a reputation throughout the territory as one of the best cattlemen around, and other ranchers often came to him for advice. But he never let success go to his head, always remembering his years of drifting and how close he had come to a very different life. Olivia's clinic became known far and wide. People traveled from miles around to seek her help, trusting her skill and knowledge. She had saved countless lives over the years, and her legacy would extend far beyond her own lifetime through the assistants she trained. On their 20th wedding anniversary, their children threw them a surprise party. Half the town showed up, testament to how much the Bennetts were loved and respected in the community. Tom and Martha Hutchins were there, older now but still sharp and engaged. Sarah Henderson, now in her 70s, attended with her daughter who had moved back to help care for her. 20 years, Tom said, raising a glass in toast. Who would have thought that frightened woman and the cowboy she shot would end up here with all of this? Everyone laughed, including Zachary and Olivia. The story of how they met had become legend in Taylorsville, told and retold with embellishments over the years. To unexpected beginnings, Tom continued, and to the family they built from those beginnings. May you have 20 more years of happiness together. As everyone cheered and drank, Zachary pulled Olivia close. She looked beautiful tonight, her dark hair now threaded with silver but her honey-colored eyes still as bright as the day he met her. 20 more years sounds good, he said. Though I am going to need them to be easier than the first 20. Olivia laughed. Where would be the fun in that? They danced together as someone played music on a fiddle, moving in the easy synchronization of two people who had spent years together. Around them, their children laughed and talked with friends. This was what they had built. Not just a ranch or a clinic, but a community, a family, a life full of love and purpose. Any regrets? Zachary asked as they danced. Not a single one, Olivia said. You. Only that I did not ride up to that cabin sooner, Zachary replied with a smile. As the party continued into the night, Zachary looked around at everything they had built, everyone they loved. It had all started with chance and necessity, but it had become so much more. Their love story was not the traditional kind, but it was theirs, unique and precious. The abandoned cabin where they met was long gone now, collapsed under the weight of time and weather. But the memory of that meeting, of a frightened woman saying she needed a place to hide, and a drifter choosing to help her, that memory would live on. It would be told to their grandchildren, and maybe one day their great-grandchildren, a story about courage and love and unexpected beginnings. And every time the story was told, it would end the same way, with a cowboy and the woman who shot him building a life together that was better than anything either of them had dared to dream. A life full of love, partnership, family, and purpose. A life that proved that sometimes the best things come from the most unexpected places, and that real love can grow from the smallest seed of kindness and courage. That was their story. That was their legacy. And it was more than either of them could have asked for on that spring evening 20 years ago, when fate brought them together in an abandoned cabin in the Utah wilderness. They had found more than shelter that night. They had found home.